on page 19, we see the rules that apply while the match is happening. So during that 2 minute and 30-second window inside the home areas. So this applies both to the left home and the right home. And again, remember, home includes the launch areas. The big thing to take away here is that home is the team's safe space. As long as something is completely in home, you can do pretty much whatever you want with it. There's some very specific restrictions there, but if it's completely in home, you're good. So home, like we said, is split into two areas. That's rule one, and each area has its own launch area. When you're in home, remember those black rectangles or the launch areas. The technicians can use their hands on the robot, the equipment, even the mission models they've got there, as long as they are completely in the home area, which does include the launch area. So the key word there is completely. If it's not completely in home, there might be some restrictions. A few things you can't do in home. The technicians can't hand things from one home area to the other. So the only way to get things from left to right or right to left are by the robot doing it. You can't touch anything outside of the home area. The exception occurs for an interruption. You are allowed to interrupt, but there could be a penalty. Another thing is they can't cause anything to move or extend outside the home area. So switching to a field view for just a moment, a good example of this would be, let's say I've got just a Lego piece here and I've got it in my home area. Let's see, make it a little bit more visible. Let's see, you can see it's in my home area. I can't do that, basically. I can't send things, I can't make things leave home except for when they're being launched by the robot. So that's a key distinction there, is that in home, you can't hand things from left to right or right to left. You can't touch anything outside of home, again, except for you are allowed to interrupt your robot, but that could incur a penalty depending. And you can't cause anything to move or extend outside of the home area except by launching the robot. So like I did with that precision token, where I just sent it out of the home area with my hand, that wouldn't be allowed. But if I had my robot and pressed start on the robot and the robot pushed it out, that's okay. And again, if you do this, any of these things, the penalty is points that you would have gotten from that will not count. A couple more things on launching. So launching is when you're getting the robot ready and you press start and you let it go out. The technicians may not keep anything from moving. And so what that means is you can't be kind of propping things together and holding up with your hand. So let's say you've got a piece of your robot that's kind of wobbly and you're trying to hold it with your hand and press go and then move all your hands off. That's not something you can do. It has to be freestanding without you holding it up before you let it go. So if the referee sees that you're holding on to something on the robot and then you press start while still holding it and then move your hand away kind of quickly, let it fall, the referee's going to say, hey, that's not a legal launch. You have to relaunch that. The robot and anything it is about to move must fit completely inside the launch area and be at rest. So there's a lot going on in that statement. It's a very, very important statement. But this is one we see commonly where, and we'll switch back to a field view for this. If I've got my robot and my robot is kind of here at the border and I'm ready to launch it, you can see this robot is not completely in the launch area. And in that case, the referee would say, hey, you can't launch that. It's not completely in the launch area. You have to go back and reset it. Likewise, if your robot is in the launch area, but also in the home area that's not in the launch area, like that piece down there, that would also be an illegal launch. It has to fit completely in the launch area. So the launch area means not in the black rectangle, and it means not on the rest of the mat. So pay attention to that, because it applies not just to the robot, but anything the robot's about to move. And finally, after launch, you need to let the robot return completely to home. So this is kind of the inverse of the last one. It has to leave from a launch area, but it needs to return to home. So The robot needs to be completely in one of those black rectangles, completely in the launch area, or completely in a black rectangle and the launch area, either one, before you interrupt it. If you interrupt it and it is not in one of those places, you do run the risk of incurring a penalty. One thing to note is that Rule 3 on the technicians may not is listed as a new this year. Some of this was added last year in the season updates, but this is another piece that you'll find in the new this year. So these are very important rules for what you can do when you're inside home. And when we say inside home, we mean completely inside home. And so this is another place where it's going to be very important to know what is completely in home, what is a launch area, what is not those areas. And pay attention to when the rule is talking about home and when the rule is talking about a launch area. Because if it's talking about home, that includes the launch area. But if it's talking about the launch area, that does not include the black rectangles. So pay close attention to how the rules are worded here.